This video covers the concept of medians, altitudes, and perpendicular bisectors. These things are just specific kinds of lines that are often involved in triangles, and questions will ask you to determine the equations of these lines. So we have to understand what makes a median, what makes an altitude, and what makes a perpendicular bisector, and how some of the concepts that you've learned in this year and previous years that can allow us to determine these equations. So we're going to start with a median line. A median line is a line that goes from one vertex of a triangle to the midpoint of the opposite side. So here I have triangle ABC, and the median line is drawn from vertex A. It's going to the opposite side, so it's going to that line segment CB. But I'm going to indicate here that it's hitting the middle or the midpoint of CB. And so to indicate that, that point actually cuts this in half. So that's showing that that's in the middle. It is the midpoint, and then we'll keep in mind that the midpoint of a line segment comes from averaging the x values and the y values. So we're probably going to have to use midpoint somewhere in this to determine the equation of the median. So that's a key word for you. When you read median, you think midpoint, M to M, median to midpoint. So you know you're going to have to use midpoint somewhere in there. So why would I have to find the midpoint? Well, if we're going to come up with the equation of a line, and we'll use slope-intercept form, in order to come up with this equation, I have to solve for the slope, and then I have to find the y-intercept. And at minimum, I need 2 points. So if I think about, if the question has given me the vertices only of the triangle, that is not enough information to find the equation of this line because I need 2 points. But if I know it's a median line, then I know I can find the midpoint of CB, and then I've got 2 points. I've got point A and I've got point M, and that is enough to find the equation of a line. One thing to note here is that a triangle has 3 median lines. So how would I draw another median line? Well, I would draw a median going from vertex C to the middle of the other side. So that's another midpoint here, and that would cut this in half. And likewise, I can draw a third median line that goes from the vertex and cuts this in half. And so that indicates that those line segments are the same, and that is another midpoint. So there are 3 medians in a triangle, and they actually all intersect at this point. We don't necessarily need to know that, but this is called the centroid. Some courses will ask you to find the coordinates of the centroid. Some don't in the Ontario curriculum. We actually don't ask for this anymore, but it might come up, so you might have to find the point of intersection of 2 lines, and I actually do cover that in a video. I don't necessarily call the intersection of the 2 lines a particular point, but you also have learned previous to this in linear systems how to solve for the intersection point of 2 lines. So here are the steps to determine the equation of a median line given the vertices. So it's always good to sketch the triangle and the median line you're looking for, because you want to make sure you use the proper vertex point. So you want to draw a quick sketch. That doesn't mean you need to have the whole Cartesian plane. When I say sketch the triangle with the points relative to each other in the right spot, but you don't need a proper scale and all that stuff. And so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to find the midpoint of the side of the triangle that the median line is bisecting. So like in this example, I drew that median line here, and then so that means I want to find the middle of CB. So you go and find that midpoint, and then you're going to use the coordinates of that vertex that the median line is connecting to the midpoint, and you're going to determine the slope of the line. Remember, slope is defined as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we're going to use our slope formula to figure that out. And then you sub into y equals mx plus b. So you're subbing the slope in. And then you're going to sub in a point as well. So you're going to replace the slope, and then you're going to place one of the points that you have, either the midpoint or the vertex. And you're going to solve for b. And then lastly, you write the equation of the line. So here's your example. A triangle has vertices at A, -3, -1, B, 3, 5, and C, 7, -3. Determine an equation for the median from vertex A. So there's my key right there. Median for me, that keyword means midpoint. So I know for sure that that's going to involve midpoint. And again, it helps me draw the median line because I have to know what makes a median a median. So I'm going to quickly do a little sketch here to get a visual. A is -3, 1. So let's say that's A. -3, oh, not -3, 1. It said -3, -1. So let's do that here. B is 3, 5. So I'm going to put that here. So 3, 5, and C is 7, -3. So it doesn't matter. Doesn't have to be perfect because I'm just getting a visual of the triangle and it's asking me for the median from vertex A. So when I draw my median line, I'm going from vertex A to the middle of the other side, indicating that that's a midpoint, and I've cut this in half. So from there, I think, okay, it's looking for the equation. And again, that's a keyword for me. That is y equals mx plus b. And so what do I need? I need to find this and I need to find that. So I'm going to start with my slope. And I'm going to say, okay, well, I need 2 points on my line to find the slope. Well, I don't have 2 points. I'm missing this one. So that's going to indicate for me that I've got to go and first find the midpoint. X1 plus X2, Y1 plus Y2. So I'm going to get that point. So it's asking me for the midpoint of BC. So here's B and here's C, and I'm going to label these as X1, Y1, X2, Y2. So X1 is 3. The X value here is 7 divided by 2. The Y value is 5. And the Y value is -3. 3 plus 7 is 10 divided by 2 is 5. 5 plus -3 is 2, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. So that looks about right from my diagram. It should be somewhere between 3 and 7, and looks like about 5, 1. So it seems like a reasonable answer based on my sketch. So now I have 2 points. And I like to always go back to my picture and incorporate that information. So now I have 5, 1, and that's enough for me to determine the slope of this guy right here. So I'm going to indicate that. I'm going to write slope with a subscript of AM. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Watch for this. This is where the mistakes tend to happen. I'm going to label these properly. So I'm going to call this x1 and y1. I'll call this x2 and y2. So lots of mistakes happen when we're plugging into the slope formula. So y2 is 1, y1 is -1, x2 is 5, and x1 is minus -3. I stop, I go back, I double check, and this gives me 1 plus 1 over 5 plus 3, which is 2 out of 8, and that reduces to 1/4. So there's the slope of my median line. So I'm going to plug that into y equals mx plus b. So there's my equation of the line. And now I need to, in order to solve for b, there's too many variables. That means I have to replace y and x. So I'm going to replace them with a point. And instead of, I'm not going to use my midpoint in case it was incorrect. I'm going to use what they gave me in the question. So I'm going to use -3, -1. Because that's the only other point on the median line. So I can't use B or C, I have to use A. So the Y value is -1 and the X value is -3. I'm going to simplify here. So -1 equals, how do I multiply fractions? I multiply across the top and the bottom. So that gives me -3 over 4 plus B. And then I need to isolate for B, so I'm going to add 3/4 to this side to leave me with B. And again, that needs a common denominator. I'm going to multiply this by 4. So B is equal to -4 over 4 plus 3 over 4. I'm running out of room here, which is equal to negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. So B is equal to negative a quarter. This is not good, but I'm going to go over here and just say, I ran out of space. Therefore, the equation of my median line is 1/4 x minus 1/4. Okay. Taking a look at my line, it definitely has like a shallow slope. It's got a positive slope, so that's what I've got here. And the y-intercept is negative a quarter, and that looks close too. It looks like it should be above negative 1, should be negative. So that seems reasonable with my sketch. So again, keyword is median. Median means you're drawing a line from the vertex that's indicated in the question to the midpoint of the other side. You have to find the midpoint and then use that to determine the equation of the line with the other given coordinate.